Okay, Dad, we were the ones that came out and said, hey, there's an auto loan bubble that looks like it may be bursting. Now we have more reserve data. What I mean by that, Dad, is there are companies out there, believe it or not, that just hold on to auto loans. They buy and sell paper. Go watch our video with Lucky Lopez to learn more about that. One of them, Dad, is Credit Acceptance Corporation. Credit Acceptance Corporation, in their Q2 earnings, their net income fell 63% because they had to set aside $178 million as a precaution against auto loans that they don't think are actually going to come to fruition. People are going to stop paying on them. I know you read all this information, Dad. What was your read?
Well, one of the things you have to understand is Credit Acceptance Corporation is big into subprime lending. Okay, so they're not necessarily lending money to the cream of the crop. They're lending money to those who have shown in their previous credit history to have difficulty in making their payments on time. So if you're going to be a subprime lender, traditionally you're going to have to set aside more money for potential losses. And they're seeing that more and more of their customers are having greater difficulty in being able to make their monthly payments. It's not something that they wouldn't have anticipated. What they didn't anticipate is that so many would be having so much trouble at the same time.
So ultimately, Dad, what they've come out and said is, yeah, we're setting aside $178 million. We can't predict the future, their chief treasury officer, Doug Busk, said. However, Dad, he called for future diminished loan performance, quote, probably a responsible assumption if inflation and other conditions remain steady. Their revenue, Dad, was actually down 3%. And that's because fewer people paid for their loans. Like,
Yes.
you don't have to look. This is not a crystal ball type situation. This is just reading from Credit Acceptance Corp. Lithia Motors recently, Dad, increased their CECL reserves because they also anticipate having more loans go awry. Ally Financial, for their Q2 earnings, they mentioned $125 million loss or decline in profits because of setting aside more money. This, as we like to say, Dad, it's a bit of a trend at this point that we're seeing these big financial institutions say, okay, less people are paying on their auto loans. Oh, and more people are, we're expecting more people to not pay on them, so we're setting aside money to be prudent.
And which means that they're being more prudent and being more realistic about the data that they're seeing than, say, Jonathan Smoke from Cox Automotive was.
We're not here to take shots, but yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, he in particular was reading the data differently to suggest that we really aren't about to be in a repossession bubble, or that the amount of delinquent loans really isn't significantly higher than it has been historically. But when you see large institutions like Ally, like Credit Acceptance, like Lithia, or with their financial arm, setting aside much larger amounts of money for anticipated losses on loans that aren't going to be paid, I would put more stock in that than in trying to read the data that says, well, historically, we're nowhere near an issue.
Money talks, and follow the money. It's not that hard to see that if we're putting more money in reserves and taking a hit on net income, again, we're being prudent to make sure that our company doesn't go under. I mean, that's ultimately what this boils down to. Dad, TransUnion put out their Q2 credit insights report. This is well beyond just auto. This is all sorts of credit insights from TransUnion, but focusing here just on Q2 2022 auto loan trends. Dad, borrower level delinquency rates of people 60 days past due has increased to the highest rate it's been in the past 4 years, 1.63%, up from 1.23% last year. Now, we're not talking about huge increases necessarily. I mean, this especially compared to like Q2 of 2020 is only about 1/10 of a point higher. That being said, every single data source we're looking at is showing how delinquency rates are going up against auto loans, and look at how much money is being spent per month on these auto loans, Dad. For used cars, $505. For new cars, $654. We've already started to see used car prices start to soften and come back down. There are about to be a host of people. This feels eerily reminiscent of 2008, doesn't it? When you have a loan against something that's not actually worth what you thought it was worth, that's what we're starting to see here materialize in the used car market.
Yes, and in 2008, when it came to the mortgage situation, people just said, "To the hell with it," and they walked away from their homes and making their mortgage payments. They saw no point in paying their mortgage payment, knowing that, well, they were a couple $100,000 underwater. What was the point? People might treat their cars somewhat differently, but my suspicion is that they would rather keep a roof over their head and have it be in an apartment or a home as opposed to in a car. So, I think we will continue to see greater delinquency, higher delinquency rates, more and more people struggling to survive paycheck to paycheck.
Again, just some of the latest data that's helping to corroborate the story that we know we're a part of, like, pushing, which is that there is likely a repo apocalypse. I hate to use that phrase, but it kind of works around the corner. And it's to be very clear, we are not like fans of the fact that people are going to be having repossessed vehicles. Like, this is terrible. This is not what we want to be reporting on. The reality is all the data points in that direction. So if you've been waiting, I don't know, to buy a used car, continue to be patient. Prices of used cars are likely going to continue to come down. Now, Dad, LendingClub, which is a publicly traded company, they actually put out a press release recently, Dad, and they found that, believe it or not, 61% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, up from 55% when they ran the same research last year. 33.5 million Americans spent more money than they earned in the past 6 months. Those are the two big bylines from this press release out from LendingClub. The numbers here also are a bit staggering and remind me of when we had AT&T CEO come out and say they've seen an increase in delinquent phone bills. I mean, this is like... This is a very obvious moment when economic situations for everyone are changing, but especially those that have the least. Like, we're seeing them stop pay for things. They're not paying for things.
Yeah, it's becoming harder and harder for more people. And if 35 million people spent more than they earned in the past 6 months, well, that doesn't bode well for them. And realistically, it doesn't bode well for society, because at a certain point in time, the rest of us are going to have to figure out ways to help protect them, and to help feed them and to help clothe them. And so ultimately, it comes out of everybody's pocket. So I don't know what the answer is, but it would be nice if some prices went down, if cost of goods went down, if there were less choices that people had to make because their paychecks didn't go far enough.
Yeah, well, hey, we're just here to read the tea leaves and share the information as it comes out. We'll leave the comment section to figure out the solutions. I think someone will have a solution in the comments. That's probably the #1 voted comment. It's probably, they got it. It's been figured out. You don't have to worry about it then.
I'm not worried then.